Hello, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this first class on MAC, and I hope everyone in this class is doing MAC 3761. Right. Now, all right. My name is Eugene or Kamanga. I'll be the one facilitating this session. So you can call me Eugene. Eugene, right? Oh, you can call me Kamanga. Right, I'll be the one facilitating this presentation on the MAC 3761. So let's hope all of you are doing this module, right? So now I will not waste your time. I will go straight into the business of the day. All right, mainly today we'll be mainly introducing the topic. We'll be mainly introducing the topic. So our focus for today will be on cost classification. Our focus will be on cost classification. All right. So say right, every entity that usually in case cost, every entity usually in case cost. Sorry, for those who have problem with load shedding and stuff like that, this session will be recorded. This session will be recorded, and you will be able to get the recording at the end of the session. All right. I think Hamza Muhammad, you raised the hand.
Yeah, I apologize, right? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I hope you're good. So basically, right, I just started UNISA. This is my first year at UNISA, and I got accepted, and they sent me a SMS saying that I should attend for this module. So I understand that you're starting with cost classification, right? But how do we get a hold of our study material?
Right.
And
Can we
I
leave that?
thought this was
Can we leave that for
okay.
the end of the session?
Okay.
Okay. Can we leave that for the end of this? Someone will attend to that.
Okay. Sure.
Thanks. Right. So I'm only mainly looking at this technical side of things. For all those guys who having any other administrative issues, there will be someone to attend to you at the right time. So for now, we'll deal with this first topic, which I'll be introducing. Then at a later stage, we'll be able to, right? I'm going to meet you all so that we will not have any disturbances. Right? I was saying that all organizations that we normally deal with, they incur costs, whether they are profit-making organizations or not. So you'd find that they usually you have to incur production costs. They can buy raw materials. They can have to pay their labor. They will have to pay their rent. They will have to pay their electricity. I think we're suffering from load shedding. And some now we have to buy diesel and maybe have generators, you have solar and other things. So for an organization to operate, whether it's a profit-making organization or not, it usually incurs costs. And these costs, at the end of the day, need to be allocated to the various areas of the entity. There are various reasons. Sorry, you have to be here with some of us. I meet you all. If you need to participate, you can always unmute when you want to participate only. Right. We have got various reasons
Sorry, Eugene.
Yes.
Can we just maybe ask people just to switch off their mics, because while you're speaking, there are babies crying and all sorts of things and we can't hear you.
Okay, that's why I was muting all of you. So please, I've muted all of you. Don't unmute yourself unless you've got a contribution, please. I did mute all of you. Thank you, sir. Right. Various reasons for cost classification. We've got many reasons. I'll just look at some of them in a nutshell. Right. We need to determine the cost of producing goods. You would find that most entities, they normally use what we call the cost plus pricing. By cost plus pricing, they first determine the cost. After determining the cost, they add their profit, which they want. Their profit, which they want to arrive at the selling price. That's one of the reasons why they can be, why we need to know the cost that will have incurred in a production process. Right. The other reason, so from the cost, then the cost will be used to determine prices. Right. Then the other reason, we need to control costs. If you don't control your costs, there is a high possibility that you can make a loss. If you don't control your costs, there's a high possibility that you might incur a loss. So there's organizations should usually control their costs so that they can be reasonably managed. Right. If you can't hear me, I think it's an issue of your mic, because I think others can hear me, right? But I think there are some who are saying they cannot hear me.
Yes, I can hear you on my side.
Okay. Right.
Yes, can hear you.
Right. So we're saying you also have to control costs. If you incur costs continuously, you might suffer, because you might find that at the end of the day, your costs are more than the revenue that you generate. So it is very important that we know our costs. Right. Then we also have to know the costs. To know the costs incurred by the various departments. We also have to know the costs that are incurred by the various departments or sections, so that we can be able, like when we do our budgets next time, we exactly know what to do. So there are various reasons. These are just some of the reasons why we have got, we need to classify our costs. Right. Now our costs can be classified in different ways. All right. Ways of classifying costs. Right. We have got different ways in which we can classify our costs. We can classify by behavior. I will look at them in a few minutes. I won't be able to look at all of them today, but as I said, this is just the first session, so it will not be as long as the normal sessions. So it will just be a shorter session. This one will be a shorter session. Right, so we classify by behavior. Then we can also classify by assignment. Then we can also classify through relevance. And we can also classify by function. Right, as I said, as this is just an introduction, I won't be able to look at all of them. I'll just look at some of them for today. Is that right? Right, so my main area that I will be looking at will be classification by behavior for now. Right, let's look at classification by behavior. Please, this classification is very, very important. This classification is very, very important because it will affect a lot of topics. You should know that this first topic, it mainly, most of the things are illustrated theoretically, But as you go, you'd find that these classifications will affect most of your topics that you will deal with in costing. In your module, you'll be dealing with costing and you'll be dealing with finance. For now, the first topics that you are dealing with are on costing. Now you'd find that throughout your costing sessions, the classification of your cost will be central to how you treat your transactions as you go on. So if you don't understand this first part, it will be very difficult for you to understand most other topics, on this topic. Is that right? Right. Please, guys, can we please address all other issues at the end? For now, I just want to look at what I'm looking at. Maybe then you will have a chance to maybe ask questions at a later stage. I will give you a floor at a later stage for you to be able to ask any questions. For now, can we please deal with what I'm dealing with? Right. When we classify by behavior, there are various ways in which you can classify. Number one, we have what we call variable costs. Right. With variable costs, from the word vary, right, these costs change as the level of activity changes. Right. When production units increase, variable costs in total also increase. And when production costs, production units decrease, the total variable costs also decrease. So we're saying this variation happens in total. So this change will be in total. This change will be in total. That means in total, when we increase our production, they will also increase. When we reduce our production, they will also reduce. Right. And they do not normally change per unit as production units change. So per unit, these variable costs, they don't change. The variation is in the total cost. We're saying that when the production increases, the total cost will also increase. All right, let me look at an example so that we can be able to see what we mean here. All right, we're saying a company manufactures tables, and each standard table requires 2 square meters of wood. Of woodworks at 100 rand per square meter. R100 per square meter. Right. So we are saying, so the cost per table, material cost, wood cost per table would be equal to 2 square meters multiplied by 100, which will give us 200 rand. Right. Then, so that means if we produce one table, we would need 200 rand for us to produce that one table, 200 rand of wood. If we produce 2, we would need 400. Now I want you to see the change in total now. I want you to see the effect on the totals. Right. Let's now say that the production changes. Right. Production units. Total cost. Right. If we produce one table, our cost of wood will be 200 rand. Right. Then let's say if we produce 5 tables, our total cost would now be 5 times 200, which is equal to what? 1,000. Right. So if we produce 10 tables, we'd have 10 times 200, which is equal to 2,000. If we produce 50 tables, we'd have 50 multiplied by 200. Right? Which will give us something like 10,000. If we produce 100, we'll have 100 times 200, which will be 20,000. So now I want you to see that when our production is going up, our total cost is also going up. When we produced one, we only had 200 cost. When we produced the 5, our cost jumped to 1,000. When we produced the 10, our cost jumped to 2,000. So as you produce more, the cost that you'll be incurring will now be going up. Right. This can also be presented graphically. I will rub off these graphs. So these graphs might not be part of the things that I shall send you later. Right. Let's say, for example, these are the units that are being produced. This is the cost that we're incurring. Right. So now we can know that our variable cost per unit is a straight line. It doesn't change. So per unit, our variable cost does not change. This variation that we talk about is in total. So per unit, it will remain at 200. Each unit, regardless of the number of units that we produce, the variable cost or the wood cost per unit will still be 200 rand. It doesn't change. Right. Then in total now, that was per unit. But then in total, when I say VC there, I mean variable cost, my friends. Right. In total, right, we have our cost, right? Right. In total now, our total cost will change as production changes. So it will start from 0. And okay, these are units. Right. If we produce 0, we won't incur any cost. So it will be 0. Then as we produce more, it will be going up like this. So this is the total variable cost scale. So you should know that there's a difference between the variable cost per unit and the total variable cost scale. Right. Yes, the recording will be shared after class. All of you will be able to get this recording. Right. Do we have any questions there? Right. So we understand what is a variable cost. The difference in that the variable cost per unit does not change and the variable cost in total changes. Right. Other examples of variable costs. Right. Examples of variable costs. direct materials. That is the raw materials that are used to produce goods. As you produce more, you would need more. We have got direct labor. Usually the wages of the people who do the production, they are usually related to their productivity. We can also say a sales commission. Based on sales units. Right. So those are examples of variable costs that we can have. So that's variable costs. Right. Then our number 2, under the classification, remember that we're classifying by behavior. The second way in which we can classify these costs, we have got what we call fixed costs. Right. A fixed cost. Right. So we're saying these costs do not change in total as production changes, production levels change. As production levels change. So they do not change in total as production levels change. Right. So they do not change in total as production levels change. For example, rent. If you are operating your factory and you are renting, the owner of the factory just needs his rent. He doesn't mind how much you produce. If your agreement is that you are going to pay 100,000 per month, whether you produce 2 units, whether you don't do anything, they will still need their rent. I think for some landlords, even during COVID, when there were restrictions, when companies were not operating, they still required their rent regardless of non-activity. So these fixed costs, we're saying in total, they don't change. Right. They change per unit as production changes. That is the fixed cost per unit decreases as production units increase. As production units increase. And it increases per unit as production units decrease. Right. As I said examples include, I've already given you one, rent. Of course, if rent is dependent on output, then it becomes variable. Right. Then we've got things like supervisor salary. Normally, the salary that does not depend on the production that is done. All right. So now I want to show you an example. Right. All right. Miracles Limited pays rent of 100,000 per month. Right. So every month, regardless of the production, they will pay 100,000, regardless of the number of units that are produced. They will just pay 100,000. Every month, they will be paying 100,000. Right. But per unit, I want you to see here, units produced, fixed cost per unit. Right. Now, if they produce 10 units, the fixed cost per unit our fixed cost per unit would now be 100,000 divided by 10. They will share. That will be equal to 10,000 each. Now, if they decide to increase production to 20, the fixed cost will not change. They will still be 100,000. Now, divided by 20, we're going to get 5,000 each. So can you see that when they increase the production from 10 to 20, the fixed cost actually reduced from 10,000 to 5,000, right? If they increase to 50, it will now have 100,000 being shared by 50 units. We're going to get 2,000 per unit, right? So it's also going down. If they decide to produce 100, we'll have 100,000 divided by 100, right? We're going to get 1,000 per unit, right? If they decide to produce 500 units, we'll have 100,000 divided by 500. We're going to have 200 per unit. So now, as you can see, as they increase the number of units produced, the fixed cost per unit will be going down and down and down. And then when they reduce the number of units produced, the fixed cost per unit will be going down and down and down. So on fixed cost, the total does not change, but the per unit cost, it changes. Right. Now to present this graphically, you can, others can hear, I think it's, okay. Let me just, right. Right. So let me just present this graphically. Right. The total fixed costs will be exactly the same as the variable cost per unit because both do not change. Right. So we would say this is the what? Our cost. Right. Then this is the units. So you would find that the fixed costs, right, in total, it will be like this. This will be the fixed cost in total. Let me say T. So TFC is for total fixed cost. It will be 100,000. It doesn't change. Regardless of the units produced, it will remain as 100,000. So you'd find that our graph for total fixed cost is exactly the same as the one for variable cost per unit. Right. Then the one for a per unit fixed cost per unit, as I depicted on my table there, that it will be going down as production increases. Remember, I said that this one goes down as production increases. So this is cost. This is the number of units that I will have here. You would find that it will go like this. It will be going down as production increases, but it will never be zero. It just goes towards zero, but it will never be zero. So this is the fixed cost per unit. It will never be zero. It will just reduce and reduce and reduce, but will never go up to zero. So this is the fixed cost, and this is the fixed cost in total and the fixed cost per unit. So this is another way that we can classify by behavior. So we're saying fixed costs, they do not change in total, but they change per unit. As they go down, as production increases per unit, and go up as production reduces per unit. Right. Now I will remove these graphs. Right. Then we have got number 3. We have got what we call step costs. Right. These are costs that have a fixed cost behavior, but will change at given intervals. Right. Let's say, for example, Shamgar Limited rents a factory for every 100 units. That is, as long as production is 100 units or less, they can do with one factory. Right, if production increases to over 100, a second factory will be required. And if production exceeds 200, a third factory will be required. And so on. Right, each factory is rented at a cost of 200,000 per annum. So we're saying our costs are at 200,000 per annum. Right. So what will happen here? I want you to see this. Units, total cost. Right. So we're saying from 0 to 100, they would need one factory at 200,000. All right. Now, if production goes above 100, from 101 to 200, they will now need 2 factories. So their rent will now be 200,000 times 2, which is equal to 400,000. Right. If production increases to 201, from 201 to 300 units, they would need 200,000 multiplied by 3 factories, which is equal to 600,000. If they increase from 301 to 400, then that will demand 4 factories, which will be 200,000 times 4, which is equal to 800,000. Right. Now, if I have to present this graphically, right, we would say this is our graph. Right. Costs in thousands of rands. Let me put them in thousands of rands. Right. Then here are the units. This is 0. Right. If they produce up to 100 units here, right, they will be paying 200,000. 200. And if production increases from between 101 and 200 units, production, they will now need 2 factories and they will need 400. So let's say this is 400. So our rent will go up and then remain constant until 200 units. Then if they have to go up from 201 up to 300, rent will go up again. Now it goes to 600. All right, so that will be 600. Then if a production increases again up to 400, then it will increase again. All right, so we'll have, it will go up to 800. So that's why it's called step cost, because it will increase in steps. That's the reason why they are called step costs, because they increase in steps. They'll be going up in steps, going up in steps. That's the reason why we call them step costs. Right. Then after step costs, okay, I'm now removing that graph. We also have what we call mixed costs. Now, mixed costs, these contain both a fixed and a variable cost component. So on one side, they are variable, and on the other, there's also a fixed cost component. So that's why we call them a mixed cost. Right. Now, I would look at an example. Right. Sales staff at Quintine Limited are paid a fixed salary of 100,000 per month. Right. And they also earn a commission of 1,000 let's say 20 rand, or maybe let me just say 20 rand per unit. Okay. Produced. Now, if we check number of units, total cost. So the 100,000, regardless of production, they will just earn the 100,000. So if they produce nothing, they will earn the 100,000. Right? And let's say they produce 500 units. They will then earn 100,000 plus 500 multiplied by 20, which is equal to 110,000 units. If they produce 1,000 units, they will earn the 100,000 plus the 1,000 units times 20. They will earn 120,000. If they produce 5,000 units, they will earn 100,000 plus 5,000 times 20. Which is equal to 200,000. So what will happen is, as they produce more, the variable portion will be increasing, but the fixed does not change. There's a fixed that does not change. So at the end of the day, there's a part that is fixed and a part that is variable. All right, let me just show this graphically. So you can say this. All right. This is our cost. All right, then the unit. Why P30 Pro, you raise your hand. Maybe it's not a contribution. Right. So here, this 100,000 will be incurred regardless of the number of units produced. So we'd find that our graph will start from here, from the 100,000. It will not start from 0. Then it starts increasing, because as production goes up, the sales go up, then there will be a commission. So this is the semi-fixed cost. So it contains both an element of fixed costs and an element of variable costs. Right. So a semi-fixed cost contains both an element of a variable and an element of fixed costs. Right. So this is another way that we can classify costs. This is another way that we can classify our costs. That is according to the behavior. Then maybe in our next session, you can also be able to know how to differentiate these costs into their different components. That is, if you are given a mixed cost, that is which contains both variable and fixed cost, then you should be able to separate to find out which portion represents variable and which portion represents fixed. Tobile.
Thanks, sir.
Yes.
With this one of mixed cost, I just wanted to check whether the definition that you gave us of the fixed cost, does it not also apply here in terms of the changes in the on the unit cost as per the production?
Because there's a combination of the effect of variable and fixed. That's why we cannot just generalize on that. But you'd find that the per unit one, it will also take the shape of the of that fixed, because the variable does not change. It will remain as 20. But the fixed, as more units are produced, it will now be shared by many units. So it will most probably it will just take this curve of fixed cost per unit also, because the fixed portion will be going down as production increases. I hope you answered.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Right. Then we move on. Right. The other one that I will look at today is a differentiation by assignment. Right. When we talk of assignment, we are talking about the association of the cost to the units being produced. Right. So this refers to the tracing of costs to what we call cost objects. So the allocation of the cost to what we call a cost object. Right. A cost object is any item or area of the business to which costs can be allocated. Right. It can be a unit, for example, a computer for a computer manufacturer. All right. It can be a department. Is that right? It can be a branch. For example, we can say Neumapias branch. So anything to which we can allocate costs, that's what we call a cost object. Now, when we are allocating the costs according to cost objects, we can have what we call direct costs. Right. Direct costs, these are costs that can be easily traced or associated with the cost object. For example, wood used in manufacturing a table. The salaries, the wages of staff manufacturing tables. So we are saying actually these costs, they can be easily associated with that product that we are producing. Those are what we call what? Direct costs. They have a direct association. We can easily know that the wood that we used to manufacture this table was so much. We took so much from stores and we used it to manufacture this table. We exactly know how many hours did the direct labor take to manufacture the table. That is the direct labor. Right. Then we've got what we call indirect costs. Right. These are costs incurred in the production process but cannot easily be traced or associated to the cost object. Right. For example, rent effect depreciation of fixed building, electricity for the factory. So basically we're saying these costs, they are necessary for us to produce, but we cannot easily tell that this was so much for this particular object. If you are producing tables in a factory, you are just paying the rent for the factory as a whole. We can't tell that the rent for this particular table is so much. The rent for this wardrobe is so much. The rent for this chair is so much. We can't associate the rent to the table. Unlike the wood, we exactly know how much wood did we give the person who was manufacturing the table. So we could easily tell that the wood used to manufacture that table was so much. So we're saying, when we're talking about direct and indirect costs, it's how near can we associate the cost to the units being produced. So you'd find that most variable production costs are direct costs. Most variable production costs are direct costs, whilst indirect costs usually take the form of fixed costs in some instances, but that's not necessarily the classification per se, but I'm saying it takes something nearer to that. Right. Then the last one that I will maybe let me look at this one also. That is relevance. We can also classify according to relevance. Right. We have got what we call incremental costs. Incremental costs. Right. Incremental costs. These are costs which arise from taking a particular course of action. That means this will not be incurred if the course of action is not undertaken. So they will only arise because of undertaking a particular decision. For example, a customer comes and says, I want a special order of 30 tables. We know that to produce those tables would need wood. Whatever wood, so the wood would be an incremental cost. The wood that would need to produce those tables would be an incremental cost, because it will arise directly from the what? From the decision to undertake that production. Right. Then we also have what we call a differential cost. We also have what we call differential cost. Right. Differential costs or revenues. These are differences in costs or revenues between different alternatives. Between different alternatives. Right. Then we also have what we call sunk cost. Right. A sunk cost, this is a cost that has already been incurred. And will not be affected by the course of action chosen. For example, let's say you want to decide whether to build a factory in Mpumalanga or in Durban. And last month we had a meeting on that, and that meeting cost 10,000. In relevant costing, we call it a sunk cost. Because whether you decide to go to Durban or you go to Mpumalanga, that has already been spent. It will not be affected by the decision that you are going to make in future. So it will, we call it a sunk cost, and we call it an irrelevant cost that will not affect the decisions that we are going to look at. We also have what we call a committed cost. This is a cost that will be incurred regardless of course of action taken. Right, let's say there's a customer that came, he wants special tables, 100 tables. Then there's a supervisor who will be working there, and this supervisor earns a salary of 50,000 a month. Now, whether we take that order or not, you will just be earning that 50,000. So we call it a committed cost. Or maybe you've got a rental agreement which you signed for the next 6 months. And even if you move out, you still have to pay that rent. So a decision to relocate to a certain area will not affect that rent. So that is a committed cost. Right. We also have what you call opportunity cost. Right. An opportunity cost this is the cost of missed alternatives. Let's say, for example, you are making a decision on whether to sell to a customer in Joburg instead of selling to your customer in Pretoria. The income that you could have earned, that is the contribution you could have earned, the profit you could have earned by selling to the customer in Pretoria should have to be taken into account. That's the opportunity cost of choosing the Joburg customer. So there will be a problem there, right? In the next. My Zoom seems not to be responding here. Not responding. Can I just go out a little bit and then I will see if I can just continue with the same meeting, or if not, I'll just send another link just now. Just hold on, just hold on. If this meeting ends, then I will have to send another link. Very sorry for that, it's not responding my Zoom here. So just hold on for a few minutes.